Hey, welcome back to Monsters of Curiosity, where we explore questions and ideas that we are curious about, and you're probably curious about, and unpack it and offer our perspective. So, I'm Jenny Evans, and with me we have Susan Evans and Paul Conrady.
Woohoo! That's all I've got.
That
Huge
wow,
Very
studio
tiny
okay.
audience.
woohoo.
All right.
Oh,
So,
um,
only Susan. Well, Susan, Paul kind of knows the topic. I have no idea what we're talking about today. So, Susan, what have you got?
it's really there are a lot of layers to this, and we may want to say, "Okay, we'll talk about this for now, and then unpack some technological interests later." So, Eric and I were returning from a trip, and we're sitting in an airport lounge, um, and they're always semi-packed, and so people are waiting to get in, so it's full, and we're in the very back of the lounge with probably 20 people, and you know how they pod them out,
Mhm.
and there's a woman who comes in, sits down, and puts her laptop on the table, opens it up, plugs in, and you realize, oh, she's doing a call with her team, and she had both ear AirPods. I don't know what she had in. She had them both in, so you can't tell how loud you're talking, and she was talking very loud, very loud. And nobody really cared, you know, we were all doing our own thing, and then suddenly, I don't know if anybody I found this fascinating. She starts saying, "Well, Bill, your store location is 6735, and based on that, what the overall company internal goals are is to get more vaccines in because with the vaccines, we're gonna be making more money. So your store has to go from this revenue point to that revenue point." And I'm listening to this going, "You do know we can all hear you." And I thought, "The hell's" you know, I thought, "Why would she be yelling all this stuff out? Employee names,
Wow.
store locations, vaccine revenue targets, regional tactics based on national tactics and what's coming from headquarters." And while she's going through all this, I open up Claude and say, "I'm listening to a person in an airport lounge, and here's what she's saying. Can you tell me what company she's with?" And they said, they, like Claude, like I'm having the conversation, said, "Wow, if she's discussing employee names, vaccine revenue targets, regional tactics, it's got to be internal business information." And I said, "It sounds like it's a pharmaceutical or like a pharmacy chain." And it said, "Yeah, it's probably CVS, Walgreens," because I said, I'm in the southeastern part of the United States, and then she starts saying, "Here's the store numbers." And I said, "They have a s" she just named the store number, and I plug in, "What store is this?" And it comes back and it says, the name of the pharmacy that we all know, and said, "And it's at 847 3rd Avenue North in Jacksonville, Florida." And I was like, holy shit, I can find out everything this woman is talking about because 'cause I'm plugging shit into Claude asking these questions. And then she said, as she continues to talk loudly, she goes, "Well, I need you to go into StoreNet. And in that, what we're gonna do is find out what the revenue goals are, and for the 2 new people on the team, Sally and Jessica, we're gonna do these things." And so I plug into Claude, "What is StoreNet and who owns that?" And it comes back and says, "This is a proprietary software and it's from this company." And so it's naming the company and everything. And now I'm going, "Okay, so what are their internal goals?" Because this is a publicly traded company. And I'm hearing that vaccine increases throughout the region are important for fiscal success. And I'm like, I think I should be hearing this, much less what if sitting around me in this group of 20 are all CVS employees coming back from a conference, hearing what their competitors' goals are. I was just like, I can't believe this is going on. I mean, it was like the craziest thing. And so I come out of it, I know the company, I know their store level goals, I know the individuals on her team. I know some of the tactical plans at a local regional level that they're trying to reach to hit goals so they can have a good quarterly call. And I was so then all of this, that's a problem. I then start asking, If I know their financial goals, can I use that for my own personal gain? If I can trade it on the stock market? And Claude's like, "No, you really can't do that." I'm like, "But I don't know if it's confidential or not, so what are the parameters? Because I know people pay a lot of money for insider information, blah, 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 that's legal, blah, blah, blah." It's like, "No, you really can't do that, don't do that." And so I was like, "Okay, good to know." I'm like, "Should I say something to her?" And it's like, "Well, you can if you want to," because she talked for like an hour and 20 minutes, all this information coming out, and I couldn't believe it. And so I thought it's an interesting topic for us on do you, one, don't do it. Let's just get that out of the way for a
Mhm.
learning. But two, it's such a breach. And I know that people are trained not to do this at the level she was at. She's clearly a regional manager. I don't know what the hell she was doing. Certainly a friendly person, but oh my God. Um,
Questionable ethics.
Questionable ethics. Is it something you should tell? And what I found most interesting was if I hadn't had an AI program on my iPad, I wouldn't have been able to find out any of this. I mean, I was literally, as she was talking, plugging stuff in, and it's like, I'm gonna narrow down the company. I'm gonna narrow down their last quarterly report. I'm gonna narrow down all of this for you. And Eric and I were talking, he's like, "Well, I thought vaccines had been spun off." I'm like, "Well, apparently not according to Claude. It's right here." It's the whole thing, I thought, you have to watch out what you're saying because she could have
Yeah.
been amongst a VP from Boots, from anybody, anywhere, and she's spewing this shit out, and I thought, "What 1, are you trying to get fired? 2, are you a spy for CVS or somebody else?"
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but it was so fascinating for me that I thought it's an ethical discussion, but I was more interested in how AI can play a part now in eavesdropping.
Well,
Susan, I don't
It
know if I should be amazed and impressed by you or completely freaked out.
yeah. Yeah.
That would never die. I guess I spend a ton of time in airport lounges. I'm always just like so busy doing my own thing. I have my invisibility cloak on. I'm like, I guess I need to pay more attention when I'm in the airport.
Only if you want to increase your portfolio illegally, you
Yeah.
know?
She's
Yeah,
spending more time more
exactly.
productively.
Um, I I I don't know. I'm appalled and fascinated by this topic. I think the topic is what? The most expensive conversation you never knew you had, something like that. Um, and yeah, that is I mean, you've ticked a bunch of boxes there, Susan, with, how do you handle internal data or information? How do you, how do you protect an enterprise's proprietary information? And it does point out that the human factor is always the problem. And then now when you layer on that other checkbox of having access to an LLM that can help you process that information so
Yeah.
quickly, you could do it in real time. I mean, you're talking about espionage techniques that are, you know, they've been around, but we just never been available to the general public.
Is
So it's fascinating. I mean, if you had recorded that, you could have had a transcript that could have been run through a bunch of different processes to find out all kinds of other information. So,
Yes.
I mean, it was a breach on a magnificent level, and what we have available from just eavesdropping now, sorry, that's kinda what it was, um, is fascinating. It's a cautionary tale of cautionary tales.
Yeah. No, there were 20 other people, and you could see people were listening to her every now and then because nobody else was talking. It was almost as if she was giving a seminar to people who weren't interested
Yeah,
because, but as I was listening there, I was like, because it really was, I'm eavesdropping with AI. And here's the field guide as to how to do it. You know,
yeah,
because I had it available and I was like, because I was just curious. I was like, who the hell does she work for? Because she's pulling up info on her screen. Cause like when we do now, we could share a screen.
yep,
And she's pulling up financials. She's like, okay, column A1, da, 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 da. And she's going
yeah,
through the whole thing. And I was like, you realize we can hear you, it
Well,
is a kind of who's in the room, you know, with you as you're going through this. I don't know who these other people were. I knew who Eric was. I don't know who this woman is, but I know who she works for. I have a pretty good idea of her title. I know the names of 2 of the new employees she has. It's like, and she was talking to probably 5 people, and I know 3 store goals in Jacksonville.
I mean,
And
there's
it's like, I
just
shouldn't
so
know this.
many opportunities for reverse engineering all of that. I mean, it's
With
just
Claude
crazy.
with Claude,
Yeah.
that's what I
I mean,
did. I was like, I'm sitting there, she's broadcasting all this stuff, and so I thought, "I wonder what the
I
hell's
mean,
going on."
I'm old enough to remember when laptops were new, and I recall a time when people would, like, have a laptop out with in ice, iSpace and people to be able to read your screen, and
Yeah.
then recall that they ended up putting, like, some kind of a polarizing filter you could or lens thing you could put over it, like a screen protector, and then so people next to you couldn't read it, you had to be straight on to see it. I'm sure that's still
Mhm.
available, but I think people just forget. I think the whole notion, the ubiquity of technology is that people forget
Yeah.
their boundaries, and at their own peril, but it is so real, and what you just described just sounds horrifying. If I was in the corporate security department for whatever company that was, I'd be
Or for
freaking
any
out.
company, now,
Yeah,
because this happens, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day when people are working from home. I mean, if you're in an apartment and you're talking loudly, the person who lives in that apartment next door might be able to hear everything that you say.
yeah,
Yes, yes, and I think the piece of it that was interesting to me was, well, it's twofold. 1, she could have been sitting with competitors. She could have been sitting with a regulator or a journalist or an analyst that covers her field. And it's like, and they're gonna go, "Wait a minute," or she could have been sitting next to, her company's VP of security that she would never have met. This company is fucking enormous,
yeah.
but and then so that was like a you I know at that level you're trained to watch what you say. I'm not sure what she was thinking. She was a smart person, but maybe not a
Seemingly,
careful person. But
seemingly.
eavesdropping, everybody does it. You hear it. You're at dinner. You hear conversations when you're at
Sure.
dinner. But what I started thinking was, as I was sitting there doing it, it's like AI makes it actionable, and now I can do something with what I'm hearing in the moment within 90 seconds. And that was the piece where I
Yeah.
was like, this changes the airport lounge game. I mean, it changes any game, but it was like, I because what you can find out legally is one thing about competitors in industries, but this sort of thing, I was like, AI eavesdropping, I don't know if there's any wall around that yet, what you should be able to do or not. I mean, I was like,
Well,
"Wow, this is really
uh,
interesting." Just
you brought up a bunch of concerns, a bunch of topics that have some people concerned and other people could care less. But for the majority of us that are business owners to think about that kind of stuff getting out there would be absolutely horrifying. I I don't know if that rises to the level of termination, but it is definitely something of like, we gotta remind people, you can't do this.
Mhm.
The last large company I worked for was global in scope, and they sent out this oh so boring handling sensitive data as like a video test thing you had to go through, and you had to show
Yeah.
that you watched this and it told you all the ethical things. And they kind of use an example like that, not specifically for an airline lounge, but it's like make sure that you aren't in a place where people can overhear our proprietary data. I mean,
Mhm.
it's out there. I always thought of it as like a uh the insurance company made them do it. That kind of thing. Like they didn't really want to do it, but it's like the insurance company. That's how they got a discount on their insurance to make everybody participate. But I mean, I think that's a standard in corporate. response to this sort of thing, but it clearly didn't register for this person. But I think you're adding that next layer onto it is the access we have to process information that we may not have had as easily at our fingertips at one time.
That was the piece that was interesting because as she talked,
The more you knew.
the more I knew. Because when I started, it's like, somebody's doing this, and here's what they're saying. It's like, it can be in this industry. They just said this store number. Okay, that narrows it down. I can find that. And it's like, I wouldn't know how to find that, frankly. I just, it's like, and then it was, she's naming software that the company uses. And that's when Claude said, this is the company, and this is probably what she does, and these are her people. And I was like, holy effing, and that was 20 minutes into her hour plus meeting. I knew exactly what she was, and so it was, that was a piece of me where I was like, this is really, um, I
Well,
feel like we should warn everybody,
yeah.
because if
Well,
I can
Mhm.
do it, you know and I'll be honest with you, I can do it because we had literally no work with us, and I was sitting there, it was that or Scrabble, and so
Mm.
well,
this was more interesting. It's like,
Corporate
it threads a
so
espionage
needle.
or Scrabble?
yeah, exactly. Should I expose someone and get them fired or Scrabble? Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I
now we're
really
talking.
wonder, once she got off that call, had you just turned your Claude screen around and just said, just so you know,
Wow.
uh, I mean, and I'm trying to get, again, like, I I love psychology, and I'm trying to understand what made her think that this was a good idea, or like this perception of anonymity. If, well, I've got my headphones in, um but I don't know, like, forgetting that, yeah, you have a human voice that everyone can hear, or just assuming that people aren't going to care what she's talking about. I'm just trying to understand her decision making, and even if it was she got caught, a delayed flight, she's missing this meeting, she has to show up for this meeting. There's probably so many other places that she could have gone to do this
Yes.
that would have been more private.
Huh.
But
Uh-huh. Or
yeah.
postpone it. I'm sorry, postpone it if you can't. I mean, those it just seems like the risk is too great, and
Mhm.
now with the added threading of the needle that is allowed to us with those LLMs, we're I just think we're at a risk because it would have been better if she had been in a noisy main, um, terminal area than in the airport lounge. Because think about the airport lounge clientele is gonna be people who would understand the things that she's talking about because they deal with it all the time. Not I don't mean this to be like classism or anything like that, but it's like, at least you'd have sh you know, have a better chance of having people around her who didn't know what she was talking about. It just
Yeah.
seems really, really odd that she would choose such a high profile place to do that type of thing. But, do you think what well, sorry. I said I'm old because I knew when laptops were new. Um, what do you think about this being a digital native kinda blind spot? Like, people are so into the device because they're of a generation where they don't know of a life without that. So they just don't even contemplate the human factor of what's around them at the time. You think that plays a factor in this, maybe? I'm curious about that.
I don't know. I I I'm with
The
you,
looks on
Jen.
your faces are just brilliant. You're just like
It's
going,
it's
"Paul, you've lost your mind again."
yeah,
Okay,
no,
okay.
it's but I
Go
think
look for it.
it's not one thing. I think I Jen, when you said, I'm trying to wrap my head around the psychology of this, because this woman was clearly smart, knew what she was doing, was from a corporate world, because the reason I even tuned into it, one, she was loud, everybody tuned into it, but she was like, Oh, and then we'll do some onboarding. We'll need to check back. And it was all that corporate phrasing where I was just like, oh, God, I hate that crap. And that's where it caught me. And then she started talking, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Why would you do this? Because you're clearly a smart person. Does airport lounge mean anonymity to a certain age? Does it mean no? I don't know. And that's what I couldn't wrap my head around. I'm like, something's off here, and I can't figure out what it is. So, because I
How
couldn't wrap my
old
head around it either.
how old was she, would you guess?
40s, in her 40s,
I mean, because
mid to
Paul, your
late
question
40s.
about, if you're a digital native, I think you actually have a better understanding about privacy and
It's counterintuitive what I'm saying, but I wonder.
yeah.
You're right. There would be.
Mhm.
I would think so. Because
Susan, I think I don't think she was as intelligent as you're assuming
yeah,
she was.
that's what that's why I said seemingly earlier.
Oh
Seemingly.
my god.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
because she knew what she was talking about, and so maybe it was sort of an aneurysm if I know my job and nothing else, but I, uh,
oh,
I was really I don't know, I don't think anybody else cared in there unless they were an analyst or a reporter or yeah,
well, the
the other
risk was
number of
there.
people.
The risk
Yeah.
was there.
The
And
risk was there. Yeah,
even if
and
only one person heard it like you, and, then they tell 10 people and they tell 10
yeah,
people. I mean, it's that kind of thing. I mean, even this conversation is gonna lead people to think through,
what I say in
maybe
an
I need to
airport lounge.
be more mindful of this in the future.
Mhm.
This is a
Well,
great
and
cautionary tale.
it really that's what I thought too, but the thing that fascinated me was how fast I figured out were between the
Yeah.
store numbers, the software, StoreNet, and all this other it's like, it these are things that nobody would know, but when you plug it into an LLM, it takes the world's knowledge and goes, "Here's exactly what's going on." And I thought, "This is really horrifying."
And you didn't even have
I
to
was
tap
a
into the
bad
NSA.
person. Yeah, if what was funny was when I asked Claude, I'm like, "Should I say something to her?" Because Claude pulls in, "Well, you love your dog, so you should say something to her." And it's like, "Oh, for the love of God, that has nothing to do with the dog." Because you know how Claude pulls in stuff that is we've
Yes.
talked about for the last 3 years? It's like, "No, that
Yes.
I appreciate that, but no." Um, Claude said, "You're semi-retired, so she's lucky it's you doing this and not someone who is a journalist or and I thought, this is really interesting if depending on who you are and how you leverage that LLM in a situation,
Mhm.
it could be really damaging because I said I don't want to get her in trouble, but I just know that this is not if she was told this is what I know, she would be horrified because that's not the intent. But at what point do you not figure out where you are? And that goes back to the psychology of what gap is there that you're not filling?
Yeah.
I mean, that to me was the holy cow.
That puts
I
it
mean,
into the realm of competing interests and, what she prioritized at that time was connecting with her team without prioritizing the ethical issue that she was violating.
the
So
location, yeah.
whether that person was right in doing so is kind of a judgment call, but it's like there was clearly priorities being met in a way that probably didn't really meet the overall arching goal of
Yeah.
what the priority should be. But it's fascinating, Susan. I think I love this topic. So what can we do about this?
I am Claude and I are now very close and in a strong relationship. Um, that I am going to, ask for kind of a field guide for both sides. And then I think we should look at it and publish it because it's like person on the call, um, what you need to think about. What kind of calls do you have in an airport lounge? That I think needs to be the first thing. You can do 1,000 meetings that mean nothing. People do them every day. So it's like that should be no problem. But I think there needs to be like a corporate policy somewhere that says you start talking about anything that we have said is um confidential, it's not an airport lounge. Because to your point, Paul, people will know how to do well. You can be anywhere in an airport. You got to be very careful where you do this stuff. I think it should be. My corporate policy would be: there's nothing confidential talked about in an airport, and just
No, I
leave
totally
it
agree
at
with you.
that. Because
Totally agree with you.
human interpretation there is going to be, well, it didn't
No.
seem like anybody would know what I was talking about. It's like, Jesus Christ, I didn't either. I had no idea what she was talking about until I pulled AI in. I said, what is she talking about? So,
Oh,
but
so you're the problem. Oh, okay.
yeah, I am the problem. But
Well,
I thought, okay, I knew I was the problem when I was doing this because Claude was fairly horrified. He's like, what are you doing? You can't use this information for trading. It's like, it's not my only trade. It would just be something I would know about. Like, no, you can't do that. It's like, I thought, okay, fine.
okay. Well, I just have to throw this out there because, contrarian is fun. Do you think that Claude knew what it was talking about? Was it hallucinating this?
Oh, no, because I always ask Claude, what am I forgetting? What makes this a smarter question? What are you forgetting? I was going through the whole thing saying,
Oh,
why
okay.
do you think it's this company? Why would you? Well, because I know this, this, and this, and the other companies use this, this, and that. And I'm like, oh, good to
Well,
know.
see, there's a
Okay.
technique right there that is helpful for people. I love that.
Yeah, no, I don't trust anything they tell me, so I push back. Ever since telling me my dog was going to die and they were wrong. So I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, you're right. I'm like, I know I'm right. So it's ridiculous. So, but I think the bigger picture stuff of and this is what I take comfort in, because I know, because I was like, am I doing something wrong? It's like, no, you're not doing anything wrong. You're eavesdropping, but you're leveraging it with AI because you're curious and you want to know what's happening. And I was like, every public conversation before that had been relatively invisible, and now it's not. And that
Yeah.
was the piece to me that I thought, this is really fascinating and like a tipping point in holy shit. And it's a publicly traded company. So now it's even more interesting. And so that was the piece to me where I was like, wow, conversations are no longer invisible because I can find things out on my phone by using the apps for all these AIs. And I know, what is the company? Begins with a P. Is already doing this, listening into everything. Essentially what's happening is I'm becoming the government listening to everything we
Oh,
say because I can do it on my own on a phone to figure out enough.
yeah. Are you talking about Palantir?
Thank you. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes. That's essentially, I felt like a little tiny Palantir doing this
Yeah.
because I was like,
Yeah. Well,
that's,
the NSA has been doing it for years. So
I know. And I just
trying
feel
to
like
call everybody, we've just been surveilled forever. But
yeah,
it sounds like you got one of those. Remember in Harry Potter when they had that ear that they were holding up they were hanging the ear from the upper level
yes,
to listen in on the
yes, you can
conversation
listen.
with the anyway, if you're not a Potterhead, you can ignore that. But I think you need to get one of those, Susan, now whenever you're anywhere. You can have your ear out
Yes.
there.
Well, now I'm going to be in airport lounges and I'll come in and sit beside you and just listen and start typing away.
Well, do you suppose if they had just used the chat feature of their meeting platform, it would have even popped into your screen?
No, she was sitting, if the room was a clock, I was at like 4 o'clock and she was at 11:30. She was far away from me. I couldn't see her screen. I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
So
So
I was
there's
just listening.
there's a takeaway.
So
Always use chat when you're in a public
yeah,
place.
yeah. I'm gonna type this in so you guys can look at it. Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, she was really broadcasting to anybody who
Fascinating.
had an AI app and suddenly went, what the hell? Yeah. It
Do we
kind of
need
freaked me out. It really freaked me out on
Yeah,
multiple
I
levels, and
suppose we
I'm
need to
still
have
processing, still
do we need to have
processing.
a red light above our head that says using AI?
Yeah,
Having that on?
a
Okay,
little
because like
button.
the
Yeah,
broadcast, on air using
yeah.
AI.
That's why I've been so quiet during this podcast, Susan. I don't trust being around you anymore.
I'm
I'm
the
not
air in front
saying
of the
shit.
arrow of the
Yeah,
No,
that's
it
funny.
was really eye-opening for me because I thought, man, because other people were typing and doing stuff. I'm like, there were 3 other men just heads down going, and I thought, Well, they could be doing the same damn thing. I don't
Mhm.
know. And that's where it was like, what used to be invisible became very visible. And so that's why I was like, as I've been going through this, it's like, I am still processing what all of this means, because it's like, there's the what the hell was she doing? Why was she oversharing confidential information unaware? I mean, ignorant. I don't think ignorant. Like I said, she seemed like a smart person, but completely unaware of her surroundings and how loud she was. And so there's that. And then there's the what I can do with AI. And then suddenly eavesdropping can become an action for good or evil within 2 minutes. And it's like, or it can just be, wow, that was interesting. Great. Done. Forget it. Who cares? But that was I'm just like, this is really an interesting kind of inadvertent step off the tram kind of thing, where it's
Yeah,
like,
well,
yeah, it's really,
it's the
it freaked me out, and it has stuck with me because of what I could find out so quick
yeah, it's
just
the
by
ethical dilemma of our time. I feel like we should have that guy from the, voiceovers in the movie theater, the ethical
dilemma of our
of our
time,
time.
to listen or
Or not.
ignore. It's like,
Well, it does kind of boil back to that, but at the same time, I think there's a healthy curiosity about it that you tapped into.
well, and I think too, it's like the takeaway for me was, dear God, know what you're talking about and where. And there should be corporate policies now. I mean, I'm sure this has been done. I'm not the first person to do this. God, I hope I'm not the first person to have done this. But it's like, I'm sure this has happened 100 times in 100 other places, where you're at dinner, you hear something and you look it up. It's like, oh, no, the twins won. Da, 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 and you look it up and you find it out because you used to Google it. Google didn't get as deep, and now I can go deeper. Or it would have taken me to understand how to use, Safari or any search function or Yahoo to get that deep. And now I ask some blindly crazy question, what does a store number mean? And it comes back with answers that are so much more detailed than I ever would have been able to do. And so that's what the piece for me was. This, I'm not the first person to have done this. And I wonder how fast corporate policies are changing because of this,
Hope
o-
not.
or or not. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, and so, but yeah, that's the piece to me where it's like, if you're so when you guys travel, Jen, we'll need a full report of what's going on in the world,
I'm gonna be paying more
unbeknownst to
attention.
it.
I sit in the airport and I look for Saturday Night Live characters,
Yeah,
of like somebody doing weird stuff, and I'm like, that would make a great SNL character of like, now I've got more to do.
I was
Yeah.
doing Scrabble, and I was kicking ass against the computer. So, it's like my little iPad. That's all I was
Uh,
doing, literally. I'm on the plane, I'm doing Scrabble. I had been doing Scrabble for, like, an hour and a half, and it was really, and thank God she came in and had a meeting. I mean, I was like, "Oh god." It's like I was looking, my brain was like, "Just give me anything other than these 10-point words you're coming up with, because 'cause you're gonna lose," you know?
Uh,
It's
espionage is entertainment.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh my god.
okay, so
Well,
we're gonna post a guide. Things
Yeah,
that, people should think about, conversations they should be having if their company doesn't already have a policy, and just thinking about, yeah, being more aware of, like, next level, what are you saying and where? And now that information can be used in so many, high impact ways in very short periods of time, like, before you even realize what you've done, way too
yeah.
late.
Yep, yep. No, it was
well said.
everything you just said. And like I said, I'm still processing because it
Well,
was so new. It was so
are we
on
gonna
the
have to talk
edge
about AI trauma now? Because you're traumatized by the
Well, could you get
traumatic.
Claude to counsel you?
Yeah, you
Sorry,
Oh,
should.
yeah.
no, no,
Yes, Claude will say, "I can help."
No.
Yeah.
When they
not
start
gonna
asking for a
allow it.
copay, forget it.
Yeah,
No, sorry.
exactly.
No, no,
He'll
not
say,
gonna
"I would
happen.
like you to talk to my colleague, Hal." Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll
Only
be
people of
it.
a certain
Yeah,
age are gonna get that.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Well,
you can
yeah.
use Chat or Claude to look that up and get a full description.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god.
Well, another one in the can. Yay.
All right. on that note, I hope you enjoyed our conversation, learned some things, what to do, what not to do.
What not to do.
What not to do. And also, Susan's available for hire.
Yes, if you have any LLM you'd like to use to listen into conversations, do reach out. Yes.
Yes.
I have
exactly
the
how
prompt.
to do it.
I have
Oh,
the
gosh.
prompt. Yeah.
All right. We'll
Okay.
see you guys next time.
Before you go, a friendly reminder that the people on this podcast are curious, not certified. Nothing you just heard is professional legal, financial, or business advice. It was a conversation, a good one, but still just a conversation. And if something they said makes you want to rethink your entire business model, maybe you should sleep on it first and then call someone with a license. The hosts bring the ideas and you bring the judgment. And if it all works out, they'd love to hear about it. If it doesn't, well, then they've never met you. All content is copyright Monsters of Curiosity and may not be reproduced or distributed without permission.